All right, so I'm going to give you a pretty simple formula to help figure out what your budget is. Now, the important thing to remember about this is it's an estimate, and all the numbers are going to be estimates that you plug into it. What you need is just a basic idea of what you have to ask people for before you actually launch the project. You want to make sure you're not coming in too low, but you also don't want to ask for way more than you actually need. First, you've got to decide what is the minimum number of units that you're willing to create. And just for an estimate and sort of ideally for your project, the minimum number of units is going to be 100. Step one, we need to figure out how much your stretch goals are going to cost to produce. And this is imagining that you hit every single stretch goal and you have to make the stretch goal items for at least your minimum number of units. And then we're going to take that stretch goal cost, we're going to divide it by the minimum number of units, because we're going to assume that we'll hit at least that many backers. Step two, you've got to figure out what your cost per unit is, and that's production costs. So how much will it cost to actually run off, 100 copies of the comic or 100 copies of the board game or 100 Timex watches or whatever you're going to make. And then you need to add the shipping per unit and the stretch goal per unit cost, which we just figured out in the previous step. And once you take all three of those together, you'll actually have what your true cost per unit is. That's a very important number. Step three, you're going to take that actual cost per unit and multiply it by the minimum number of units. And once you do that, that gives you your campaign base goal. To that number, you want to add 8% to account for Kickstarter fees and Stripe fees. And that's 5% for the Kickstarter fee and then 3% averaged for the Stripe payment processing fee. And then finally, you want to add 15% to that number to account for taxation. And I dive into taxation a little bit later in the lesson, but 15% is a good number to add to that. And that will give you your final campaign goal. So once you've done all this arithmetic and multiplication and division, this is where this will arrive at the number that you actually want to ask for.